Hello and welcome to Entrepreneurs Get Visible. Today we're talking about something I know lots of you want to know about, which is how to have a successful 5-figure launch. That can feel, when you're earlier on in your business, something that is a long way away. And what we're going to be talking about today on Entrepreneurs Get Visible, as I'm joined by my guest, who I'll introduce you to in a moment, is how you can make that a reality so that you have consistent cash flow in your business by using online courses. We all are playing in this online space, and what happens if you make sure that you are really focusing on bringing in more money to your business by a product that you've created once and are selling and packaging over and over again. So I'm joined today by Laurie Burrows, who's often referred to as the strategy queen. We're going to be talking about exactly how to do this, because Laurie supports and mentors people in the online business to do exactly that, to start having much higher launches so that they've got more cash in the bank, which is what we all want. So welcome to Entrepreneurs Get Visible, Laurie.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell my listeners a little bit about you and why you've ended up doing what you're doing now.
Okay, so I launched my business back in April 2019. So I've been doing it for a couple of years now, after 8 years in marketing. So I was 8 years in marketing, and for a very, very long time, from probably about the age of 11 is the earliest I can think back to, I knew I wanted to start a business. But it took a little bit of time to get there and start a successful business, because I was in corporate, then I'd start a business, I'll stop, go back to corporate. And it was towards the end of 2018, I came across the coaching and training industry, this online industry, and it was just so perfect for me because it brought my passion of marketing and strategy together with my passion of teaching and training. So I launched in April 2019. 2 years later, I'm celebrating hitting multiple 6 figures cash in my business, all whilst being a new mum and working just 15-hour weeks.
Yeah, so you are a very new mum. Oh, we've got some feedback there. You're a very new mum. You've got a 7-month-old baby at the moment, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
And so what's the reality of that when you're running an online business? What's your day-to-day like at the moment?
Other days can be trickier, but a thing that I have done really well in my business is setting up systems and processes to get as much automated as possible, but then having a team as well who can really support me in all other areas, so I can only show up for the things that require my face and my voice. And then that allows me to be a full-time mum, so I'm having this successful business but never missing out any time with my little boy.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? When you've got a good team around you, when you've got people to do the things that right at the start you have to do everything, then
Yeah.
you are actually able to grow. And sometimes it can be uncomfortable deciding to invest in your first VA, your first assistant, your first social media person. But actually, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, that's so true. And what I find is when people begin to grow and they're bringing that cash into their business, they're sometimes a little bit scared to, as you said, hire that first VA because they see it as an expense, but it is an investment. When you invest in your first team member, it will make such a difference to everything you do in your business. It's when I started investing in my team, I saw huge growth in my business as well.
And let's talk a little bit about that today. So we want to get into the nub of how you have high level launches, and we're talking today about 5-figure launches. How do you go from having an idea to making that happen?
So I was very lucky with the marketing experience I had. I knew straight away what to do. But it's about, of course, having the idea. You can have the best idea in the world, though. But if you don't have an audience to launch to, it's not going to work and it's not going to make you any money. So when you're taking your idea and you want to begin to monetize it, one of the most important things that you should be focusing on, especially in your earlier stages of your business, because no one knows you, is growing your audience, building that authority online and building that credibility. So you're seen as the go-to expert for the problem you solve and who you solve it for. It's once you've began to do that, you can then turn your idea and monetize it.
And this is a step that I'm going to hold my hand up and say, when I first started out in the online space, I had no inkling that that was what I needed to be doing. I was throwing all my time, effort, and attention in building for me, it was a membership rather than a course, but building what was going into that and making it all look pretty. When actually, if you haven't got people ready to purchase from you, you're kind of wasting your time.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do we do this then? How do we make sure that at the point that we're launching something, we have an audience primed and ready to go?
So one of the first things I did in my business before I even launched was focus on just growing my audience. And the first stage is to choose the platform that you want to utilize. I wouldn't recommend trying to be on every single platform because if you at the moment are just by yourself, you're going to burn yourself out. And it's better to focus on one platform, perfect that. Then, as you hire your first team member, expand into others. But the best thing to do to grow your audience, and for myself, it started with my Facebook group. I grew my audience in my Facebook group. It's the reason I'm here today. So the first thing I did was start this Facebook group and have a freebie. Your freebies are a great way of growing your audience, and everything starts with a freebie. Whether you convert someone into a $17 offer or a $50,000 package, it will all start with them seeing the free content. So having a freebie that you can promote outside of your audience to draw more people in is how you're going to start building that authority, showing your audience you're the go-to expert, ready to launch to them.
It's so true. And it's actually that kind of reciprocal. I don't know if you've read Robert Cialdini. I can never say his name. His book, Influence. The more you can give for free, the more you can demonstrate your expertise in that way. You give something that someone actually finds valuable and useful, not just a freebie for the sake of it, but the more you're inducing this primal need for reciprocity. So you give something for free for somebody and they want to give you something back, whether that's their time, their attention, their comments, their support, or later on their cash. You're actually inducing this primal need. So what makes a good freebie then?
So in terms of a freebie, it has to be enticing. It has to have a really clear end result. So a clear end result that people want to achieve. So think about your ideal client and think about their end goal. So for myself, one of the biggest things that people want is to have a 5-figure launch. So I have freebies around how to create and launch your courses to hit the 5 figures. So have a really clear, enticing end result to draw people in, a result that they're actually going to want to spend time watching or reading your freebie.
And then do you think in this kind of online space where every man and their dog has a freebie, do you think that in order to really get this to work, it's crucial to have Facebook ads that have a fair amount of money behind them? Is that necessary?
Not at all. So I have just gone into my 3rd year of business and I've scaled my business to 60 to 70K cash months. And it's only now we are getting serious about the ad strategy and really pumping money into it. It was only back in February I did a full campaign with an ad strategy. Before that, everything was organic. It was all through creating freebies, providing as much value as I could to my audience to attract them and nurture them. You don't need to be using paid ads. Use them later on when you've scaled and you have a surplus of income to invest in them because they are expensive. But begin just doing everything organically. You don't need ads to grow and scale.
It's so interesting because I played around with ads at the beginning of my business when I didn't even understand what that was as a strategy. And actually now we don't use them very often. We switch them on and off from time to time. But when you've got a good freebie, one that actually speaks to your ideal client, actually people will sign up for it anyway. One of the things I see when people are kind of first dabbling with creating a freebie, a lead magnet, an opt-in, whatever you want to call it, is they don't know where to put it. So tell me about when you create a new freebie, where's it going?
So there's so many different freebies out there that we can create. We can either do a live freebie or something that's pre-created or pre-recorded. And both are really, really effective. I do a combination of both in my business. In terms of where they go, especially if you're not using ads, is firstly, my current social media. I utilize my current social media to promote and talk about that freebie. So it might be my Facebook group, my email list, my Instagram, my Pinterest. I then also utilize other people's social media. And this is a great tactic if you're in those earlier stages of your business and you don't have your own audience. Utilize other people's audiences where allowed. So in some Facebook groups, they'll allow you to promote your freebies. Another effective way is to find collaborations where you can go live in someone's Facebook or on their Instagram, provide their audience with value, and then have a call to action with your freebie. And that can drive lots of traffic to it as well.
Yeah, because you're getting in front of someone else's audience, there's already that trust factor. And that's why getting on people's podcasts, if it's the right audience for you,
Yeah.
also really works. It's one of the biggest lead generators that people are finding for free right now. But you have to be demonstrating that you do know what you're talking about, that you can provide that result, and that the freebie you offer actually fits with the thing that you're discussing. I see this quite often. People will go into a group and they'll give a training on something in particular, or they'll be on a podcast and they'll talk about something, and then their freebie is really disconnected and disjointed, and you think, well, you've wasted an opportunity, because if you'd had something that followed that through line of what you're discussing, it would have been a no-brainer for people to go and get it.
That's so true. Especially another thing I see with that as well is, someone might do a freebie to lead to a freebie. But a great thing about the freebies is how we then monetize our audience. So we can use that freebie to then launch something. But if you're going to do that, your freebie also needs to relate to your paid offer and what you're launching.
Yeah, for sure. So that it makes sense that that's what you'll become known for. So Laurie, how much do you encourage your clients then, once they've got that freebie and people have opted in, how much of the sell, if you like, and the warming up and nurturing is happening in the subsequent emails that people get?
So again, there's so many different strategies out there to really begin to launch, grow, and scale your courses. So it's depending on the strategy that you're going to choose. So if I'm doing sort of a big live launch, which is utilizing a 3 to 5 day challenge, then myself or my clients will have cart opens for around a week or so. So they're using their freebie, they're promoting it for a week to 2 weeks, and that's how they're nurturing their audience. They do the freebie to nurture them further, and then around a week or so, carts open. Or they might do something like a one-off webinar and then open cart for 72 hours.
And these techniques, they work. So those of you who haven't yet thrown yourself into a challenge or a masterclass or whatever it is you choose, or even an evergreen model, when you nail it, when you nail the offer, when you nail the freebie, when you nail what happens in between, how you communicate, that's how people are growing businesses. But that doesn't mean you're going to get it right first time. So Laurie, I'd like to hear then, for someone who's now running a multi-six-figure business and supporting people to do launches in that way, I'm really curious to hear about times when this hasn't worked out for you and what you were doing not so well.
Yeah, I've recently written a lot of content about this as well. Perfect timing. Beginning 2019, so April 2019, I started this business and I had a lot of success very quickly. However, towards the end of 2019, I nearly gave up my entire business. And it was a habit of starting businesses, giving them up and going back into corporate. But I nearly gave up the entire thing. One, because of mindset. I wasn't working on mindset, but also I had a launch that just didn't go to plan. It was for a completely new program that I'd never done before. To be honest, I didn't feel fully aligned to it. It was more just to bring in cash rather than being truly passionate about it.
Mhm.
And I put my effort into creating content, doing the launch, and it flopped. It just flopped. I didn't even make 4 figures in cash from it.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about what a flop really meant to you back then, because that can mean something very different to some people. That can mean no sales, that can mean 2 or 3 or even 1. Sometimes having 1 or 2 is actually quite more painful than no one, for various reasons. What did that mean?
So I'd only got 1 sign up for it.
Mhm.
So for me, it just felt like an absolute disaster. And I really began to question myself because I'd had so much success. And how had I gone from having success to then suddenly it just not working out for me?
And what do you think the answer is to that? How had it happened?
So one was definitely mindset. I wasn't working on my mindset. At the time, I was treating my business, really reflecting back, more like a hobby rather than an actual business, just showing up bits here and then and being quite inconsistent in what I was doing. And then creating a product that just wasn't aligned to me. It was just there to generate some more cash when I wasn't truly passionate about it.
And there's a big thing there. If you aren't selling something that you believe in or that you're passionate about, it does show up in your content. It shows up in how you talk about it. It shows up in how much you can actually be bothered to switch the ring light on and do a live and
Yeah,
even post about it. So there is a knock-on effect there. And I think sometimes when you're launching a course, because you're so focused on I want the money, I need the money, that actually there's a really different energy about what you're doing as well.
exactly. If you come from that place of needs, it's so, so different in terms of your energy and how you show up.
Yeah. So now then you're supporting people to have 5-figure launches. They've got the freebie, they've put it out there, perhaps they've hosted the challenge, maybe they've done the masterclass. What happens then? What really makes the difference to get people over the line?
Content is absolutely key to everything you do online, content and consistency. So a big thing that I see is after people do their freebie, they will launch from their freebie. They might mention their paid offer once or twice, and then that's it. And that is not enough to convert people. You need to have a cart opens period for around 72 hours up to a week. Some people do it up to 10 days. But in that cart opens period, you have to be consistent in showing up online and you have to have content that stands out, especially if there's
Mm.
other people out there doing what you do. Stop trying to sound like everyone else.
It's interesting. I've seen that before. People we're getting some feedback here. People disappearing from the moment they've opened their cart. They think that's it. I've got some emails going out, and that's it. I can kind of coast now until the finish line, till close cart. But actually, that's when you have to step it up. The work isn't done until the cart closes.
Exactly.
So what is it then that really does make the difference between a launch that works and one that gets you over the 5-figure mark?
So I'd say a big one is the amount of people you get in your freebie is really important. That can make a huge difference. The average conversion rate for freebies tend to be around 2 to 5%. Some people's are higher. I've had clients who have had high as 25%. But if the average is between 2 to 5%, you want to be looking at then how many people do you need in your freebie? Because if you don't get enough people in there, you're not going to have that 5-figure launch.
And it's I think as well pricing, because if you know the numbers and you've got an offer that's say £47, for example, and you know that you've only got 100 people coming through the door and you at most are going to convert 5%, well, you're going to be disappointed because you haven't charged enough. So you do have to be mindful of that. If you haven't got the numbers coming through the door, are you pricing accordingly so that you've at least covered? I think it's heartbreaking to see when people do launches and they don't cover their costs. We
Yeah,
see this
it
again and
is.
again. Okay, then. So for someone who just thinks, yeah, but I've got my course, I know I want to sell it, but I'm kind of done. I feel like I've done all of that work. Um, what would you say to them about being more out there at that point?
So one thing I would say, so if they've done all of the work and they're feeling done, is just evaluate everything you've done. Evaluate what's worked well for you, what hasn't, because that's then going to give you an idea on how you can improve and what you can then do moving forward.
So, Laurie, what's this meant for you that you've been able to create this for yourself in a relatively short period of time?
Oh wow, it's absolutely changed my life. I was 2 years ago absolutely miserable being in corporate, having someone tell me what to do and how much I was worth, having to work 40 plus hours per week, to now 2 years later having true freedom to do what I want when I want, to go where I want when I want, never having to worry about things like money, and also having my baby boy and having all of the time in the world that I want with him. It's just the most amazing feeling.
Oh, so nice. So then, Laurie, for someone who wants to learn how to launch and how to do it properly, where can they come and find you for further support?
So I have a free membership and it is completely free of charge. You'll never be charged for it. And in this membership, I have so much training around how to begin to create, launch your different offers.
Okay, cool. So we're going to make sure that that goes in the show notes beneath wherever you are listening to it today. I'm just going to see if I can get it in the chat function while we're live too. But go find out. Go find out. I can't get the link while we're live, but we'll make sure it's in the show notes if you're listening on the podcast later. And so thank you so much for joining us today, Laurie. And I hope giving some inspiration to people who are maybe foraging into the world of creating their first freebie, that this stuff does work when you get it right. But you've got to be clear on your messaging and you have to show up. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.